Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we will learn about intervals, how they are numbered and adjusted, and we will focus on what we call perfect intervals. Let's have a first look at intervals, what they are, and how to label them. Do you remember when we talked about perfect fifths? This is in fact an interval of 5-letter notes that has a gap of 7 semitones. In this case here, we are doing it on a C major scale, starting from C, all the way up to G. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5-letter notes and the gap between them, so starting from C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this distance between those two notes is what we call an interval, and a fifth is just an example of an interval. But the perfect fifths in this case doesn't have to start from a C or be part of a scale even. Here we have an interval of a perfect fifth between E and B. Same story, 5-letter notes and 7 semitones gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here we have it between A and E. Same story. Between B and F sharp. And between E flat and B flat, doesn't matter in which octave register we're playing it. All those are perfect fifths. So the interval is defined as the distance in pitch between any two notes. We notate it with a letter and a number. The letter refers to the interval quality, and the number refers to the interval number. M6 here is an example of an interval. Now, depending how we play the notes in an interval, we can call it a harmonic interval if they are played at the same time. Here we see an interval between A and E. Because we play them at the same time, it's called a harmonic interval. Now, if we play them in sequence, we call it a melodic interval. It can still have the same quality and number, but instead of calling it harmonic, we call it melodic. Both of those are intervals. All intervals are grouped into either perfect intervals, and here we have the unison, which is the first, the fourth, the fifth, and the octave, which is the eighth, or imperfect intervals, which are the second, third, sixth, and seventh. The perfect intervals are by default perfect, so that's their default position, and from there they can be either augmented or diminished. So they have 3 possible qualities. While the imperfect intervals could be either major or minor, and from the major we can go to augmented, and from the minor we can go to diminished, which means that imperfect intervals have 4 possible qualities and not 3 like the perfect intervals. So the difference is that the perfect intervals don't have major and minor qualities. They're always perfect, and from there you can go to either augmented or diminished. So let's start to learn about the perfect intervals. As we said, they can be first interval, which is called a unison, fourth, fifth, and eighth, which is called an octave. So from a perfect position, if we raise the upper note by 1 semitone, we have what we call an augmented quality, or if we lower the upper note by 1 semitone, we have what we call a diminished. The perfect, we write it with a capital P, augmented with a capital A, and diminished with a lowercase d. So for example, a perfect unison would be P1, P being perfect and 1 being the first. Perfect fourth would be P4, and so on. Augmented unison would be A1, diminished eighth would be D8, etc. It is very important to note that the adjustments should only be made with incidentals, but we keep the same letter notes. So an F will always remain an F, but we change its incidentals, sharp, flat, double flat, etc., even if it overlaps with another note on the scale. We will see more examples on this later. Let's start with the unison. Here we are in the key of E. The unison is the interval within the same note, so a perfect unison is the same note repeated. In this example on the left, it's A. You might wonder why would that make any sense to have 2 of the same notes together. Just imagine them as two separate instruments playing the same note or two voices, then it makes more sense. Now, if we raise the second note by half a step, so from A we go to A sharp, so the interval between A and A sharp played together is an augmented unison. We write it as A1. So the two A's together is a P1, perfect unison. A and A sharp is an augmented unison. It's an A1. And if we lower it by half step from the original position, we have an A and A flat. Here we have a diminished unison. Just note here that I put in parentheses because this interval writing is mostly theoretical. There are other ways to annotate this interval in a more practical way. Also note that here we went down to A flat, while in the key of E and E major scale, that position is normally G sharp. Like we said, we should keep the same letter name and only change with incidentals. Now on the right side, we have C sharp as a perfect unison. Notice we don't write the sharp next to it because it's already in the key signature. If we raise the second note by half step, we don't have a D, we have a C double sharp. Because we start from C sharp, we go up half step, double sharp. It's in harmonic with D, but remember we have to keep the same letter note. So this interval is an augmented unison. We write it as A1. On the other hand, if we go down half a step to C natural, the interval would be a diminished unison. Let's move now to the perfect fourth. The perfect fourth is a distance of 5 semitones in 4-letter notes. Let's look at some examples here. We are in the key of D flat major. In this example, the first note is an E flat. Again, we don't write the flat since it's already in the key signature. The perfect fourth is the interval between E flat and A flat. We can play them together or in sequence. If we raise the A flat by 1 semitone, and here we can check the letters, so E flat, F, G flat, A flat. You see, 4 letters, and then the number of semitones in between, starting from E flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if we raise the A flat by 1 semitone, we will have an A natural. Now, this interval between the E flat and the A natural is called an augmented fourth. We write it as A4. P4, A4. This kind of gap of 6 semitones is a bit special. It is actually half of the 12 semitones in the octave. We call it a tritone. Now back from the perfect position, if we lower the A flat by 1 semitone, we have the A double flat. Because we were already at a flat, going down 1 semitone is a double flat. And this is a diminished fourth. We write it as a D4. So, perfect fourth, augmented fourth, perfect fourth, diminished fourth. On the right side, let's pick some notes that are not even from the D flat major scale. Let's say we start with a C flat, which is in harmonic with B. The perfect fourth would be an E natural. This is the perfect fourth. That's the distance. Notice that none of those two notes are in the D flat major scale, but that doesn't matter because intervals are independent from key or scale. Now, if we raise the E natural by half step, we get the E sharp, which coincides with the F. The interval between the C flat and the E sharp is an augmented fourth. Note that even though F is in the E flat major scale, we don't write it here as F. For the purpose of music theory and voice leading, we still write it in this case as E sharp to reflect the nature of the interval. Then, from a perfect position again, if we lower to E flat, we get the diminished fourth. P4, A4, D4. Now we go to the perfect fifth, which we talked about before. We are here in the key of E, so E major is. In the example on the left, the first note is a G sharp, its fifth is a D sharp, so we write this as a perfect fifth, P5. Then by raising the top note, as it was already with a sharp, one semitone above that would be a double sharp. So this is a D double sharp, which is in harmonic with E. And so this interval, G sharp and D double sharp, is an augmented fifth that we write as A5. Then back from a perfect position, if we lower the D sharp by half step to D natural, then we have the diminished fifth. This is also a tritone because there are 6 semitones gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The other example on the right side, here we have a perfect fifth between F and C natural, the augmented fifth between F natural and C sharp, and the diminished fifth, also the tritone, between F and C flat. And now let's take a look at the octave. We are in the key of C here. Let's take B. In this case, the perfect octave would be between B4 and B5. We write it as P8. Now let's take this note and make it one half step higher, which would be a B sharp, although it is in harmonic with a C. And even if we are in the key of C, we will still write it as B sharp. So this interval is an augmented octave, which we write as A8. And then back from a perfect position, if we go one half step lower, which is B flat, this interval is a diminished octave, which we write as D8. On the right side, if we start with a G flat, a perfect octave would be with a G flat above that. An augmented octave is with G natural, and the diminished octave is with G double flat, because we're already from flat, we go down one more flat, so that's double flat, and that's a diminished octave, which we write as D8. And that's it for now. If you have any question, go ahead and write it in the comment section. I will make sure to answer as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this lesson, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach the target of 100 subscribers. I'll be posting one lesson per week to help you on your learning journey. And I wish you a fantastic musical day.